Thank you for joining me for this exploration number 7. This is Kusujiro Miyoshi. Today, I will deal with Henry Cockeram's English Dictionary 1623 under the title The Significance of the Second Part of Cockeram's Dictionary 1623, its arrangement of entries, treatment of synonyms, and information on word formation. This talk is based on my presentation at the International Conference at UC. Section 1, Introduction. The second part of Henry Cockeram's English Dictionary, 1623, which is comprised of 3 parts, has drawn the special attention of the authorities until today for its unique structure of entries to provide information on how vulgar words can be replaced by more refined and elegant terms. For instance, Leo Wiener remarked as quoted at reference number 1, and Noel Osserton suggested the possibility that the second part can be regarded as the first dictionary of daily words of the language in terms of its head phrases. Saying as quoted at number 2. Against this backdrop, the authorities have naturally busied themselves by seeking dictionaries which Cockeram may have referred to in compiling the second part. Concerning this point, the opinion by Witt, Starnes and Gertrude Noyes seems to be especially prevailing. They said, as quoted at reference number 3, suggesting the influence from John Ryder's English-Latin Bilingual Dictionary in Bibliotheca Scholastica, 1589. Making an objection against this prevailing opinion, I, in my presentation at the LCHLL5 in 2010, pointed out the fact that the second part actually had little relevance to Ryder's Bibliotheca as well as to any other English-Latin dictionary, and that the second part is instead greatly influenced by 3 English monolingual dictionaries, namely Robert Cawdrey's Table Alphabeticall, 1604, John Bullokar's English Expositor, 1616, and the first part of Cockeram's Dictionary, clarifying the point that Cockeram's basic practice in compiling the second part was inverting headword and definition in the entries of the 3 dictionaries. Here, a question like this will naturally arise. If head phrases in the second part are heavily based on the dictionaries before it, whether on English Latin dictionaries or on English monolingual dictionaries, what is left in it which can be regarded as noteworthy? To this question, my answer is that the second part as a whole is historically noteworthy in 3 respects, which seems to have hardly been recognized among the authorities. Namely, its arrangement of entries, characteristics of a synonym dictionary, and information on word formation. In the following, I will analyze these points, providing one section for each. In proceeding with the analysis, I will deal with entries on words whose headword begin with the letter L on the second part. This is the sampling method which Joseph Reed adapted in his analysis of Noah Webster's American Dictionary of the English Language, 1828. Concerning which Reed said, as quoted at number 4, such a situation will also be applicable to many other lexicographers of the historical dictionary, including Cockeram. Section 2, Arrangement of Entries. As to the arrangement of entries in the second part, Osserton referring to the sequence of entries from pardoning to one whose parents are of sundry nations, once made a remark indicated at number 5. In making this remark, he also recognized the fact that the preposition to in the head phrase not to be pardoned is a useful mode of grammatical coding as shown at number 6. Oselton here can be regarded as having been aware of one notable aspect of the arrangement of entries in the second part. However, Cockeram exercised his ingenuity in this respect probably much more than Oselton came to notice. In order to know Cockeram's principle of arranging entries in the second part, it will be required, for instance, to see the sequence of 3 entries quoted at number 7. This sequence may apparently seem inexplicable, giving the impression as if the 3 entries were arranged haphazardly, not in accordance with the alphabetical order at all. Actually, however, this sequence makes a good example to know Cockeram's unique principle in arranging entries in the second part. A key to the mystery of the sequence lies in knowing 7 entries following the third entry lively, and the set of 3 entries beginning with to make lively and ending with living in our time indicated at number 8. That is, we can find the fact here that Cockeram provided a set of 9 entries concerning the word live, whose first one is a loose liver, or the second entry in the set of 3 cited at number 7, which is followed by lively. And it will be noteworthy that Cockeram actually consistently performed this practice in providing all 195 entries within the range of the L's in the second part. In this situation, when focusing our attention on the practice, we come to notice the fact that the 195 entries can be divided into 74 sets along their arrangement sequence. Boundary line of the sets being easily determined. For instance, Cockeram provided the set of entries concerning lament in the order indicated at number 9, and he arranged entries concerning love in the sequence indicated at number 10. After having examined such sets of entries in relation to the overall sequence of entries in the L's of the second part, we can notice 2 facts. The one is that, in respective sets of entries, Cockeram did not necessarily provide relevant entries in alphabetical order. The other is that, concerning the sets themselves, they are generally arranged alphabetically based on words which are related in common to respective sets. It may be possible to see in such sets of entries or the group of entries the germination of lexicographical technique to provide sub-entries for the treatment of idioms and set phrases, though admitting the fact that Cockeram's practice in this respect is still a long way from the systematic style of our modern sub-entries. Besides, some English-Latin dictionaries before the second part, including the one in Ryder's Bibliotheca, had actually treated idioms since its early stage, and they had fairly finely treated them. However, if Cockeram is the first lexicographer of the General English Dictionary that treated quite a few idioms with little reference to English-Latin dictionaries, the fact may simply be regarded as significant that he provided such groups of entries. Here, I want to give one note concerning the homography. In conjunction with such practice, it will be worth seeing the case where Cockeram provided two sets of entries in a row whose relevant words are homographic of each other. As one such example, he provided the set of entries which concern line, meaning to couch, and that of entries which concern the word of the same spelling, meaning to tell a falsehood. The former set is comprised of 7 entries: to lie upright, lying, and lying down, one lying away, to suppress another, lying on the ground, to lie flat on the ground and lying alone. As to the latter, it is comprised of 3 entries: to lie, a lying, and an inventing of lying. In each of these two sets, the relevant entries are provided in the order as shown here, and in consequence, a total of 10 entries are arranged in succession, apparently out of alphabetical order. Actually, however, we can divide the 10 entries into two sets, the one ending with lying alone, and the other beginning with to lie, where the refined term of falsify is listed. Phantom falsify is listed. Section 3. Characteristics of a synonym dictionary. In moving on to examining the second part of the synonym dictionary, I want to begin with citing the statement by Gabriel Stein quoted at number 11, which refers to Cockeram's recognition of word families. In a sense, my analysis in this section will be to explicate the statement. The second part, where the entries are arranged as analyzed in the previous section, is basically a type of word-finding dictionary. Concerning this point, we know Cockeram's renowned statement as to his intention of having compiled the second part, which is shown at number 12. In addition to this statement, we can find such an entry as indicated at number 13, which will also prove the second part to be a word-finding dictionary. At the same time, when focusing our attention on entries in the second part, which lists more than one reference term, its characteristics of a synonym dictionary stand out in relief. Specifically, out of the 195 entries within the else in the second part, we can find 33 such entries. These entries may seem small in number, but their contents are highly notable, revealing the fact that how closely Cockeram referred to the first part to find synonyms and how much he concentrated his attention on the shade of meaning of the synonyms. And in the 33 entries, Cockeram provided the head credits in two ways. The one is copying definitions in the relevant entries in the first part, and the other making head credits anew, altering definitions which are seen in the first part. If I may suggest the conclusion in advance here, it is this way that made the second part have the characteristics of a synonym dictionary. In the following, I will analyze each of the two ways. Section 3.1. Copying definition in the first part. As to 7 out of the 33 entries in the else of the second part, where more than one reference term are listed, they may have been brought about as a natural consequence of Cockeram's use of the first part. One instance of the entries is lifting up, whose contents is as shown at number 14. In relation to the 3 refined terms in this entry, we can find the identical number of entries in the first part as shown at number 15, all of whose definitions are the same, with the head phrase of the entry in the second part, which is indicated at number 14. Concerning the remaining 6 entries out of the 7, where Cockeram copied definitions in the first part, they are as shown at number 16. Section 3.2. Making head phrases anew. In contrast to the case of the 7 entries analyzed now, we can find 12 entries in the else of the second part, which include more than one referent term whose head phrases are evidently different from definitions in the counterparts of the first part. In such entries, we can see the traces of Cockeram's having exercised his ingenuity, uniquely paying attention to the senses of relevant words. I show 3 instances of such entries at number 17, to each of which I add counterparts in the first part. The remaining 9 entries out of the 12 of this type of entry in the second part are as shown at number 18. I have thus far analyzed 2 ways with which Cockeram provided entries where more than one refined term, which are synonyms, are listed under the same head phrases. It may be said here that his performance of this practice made the second part have the characteristics of a synonym dictionary. Besides, the second part, which reflects such practice of Cockeram's, may be regarded as the forerunner of the English thesaurus. Section 4. Information on word formation. The second part can also be regarded not only as a synonym dictionary, but also as a dictionary which provides information on English word formation. In this regard, the lexicographers before Cockeram, specifically Cawdrey and Bullokar, had treated quite a few English derivatives, showing their interest in word formation. However, as far as I can judge, they, in most cases, had simply listed respective derivatives one by one, irrelevantly to their root form and other derivatives. In contrast to this, when comparing Cockeram's second part with his first part, which can be regarded as a usual type of the dictionary of hard words, we can know the growth of his lexicographer's mind in relation to the word formation, thus being able to find its uniqueness. As I analyzed in section 3, the 195 entries in the else of the second part can be divided into 75 sets according to words based on which entries are arranged. Out of these 74 sets of entries, there are 15 where we can find refined terms of which are derivatives and their root form. For instance, the set of entries concerning the word lay include the term impute and its 2 derivatives, and the term impose and its 1 derivative as indicated at number 19. To cite one more example, in the set of entries concerning let, we can see omit and pretermit, and their derivative as indicated at number 20. Specifically, such referent terms account for 20.6% of all referent terms in the else, or 49 out of the 238 in number. Such referent terms in the second part would be regarded as highly useful for its readers to know the patterns of English word formation. However, in this situation, a chance happening which occurred during Cockeram's compilation of the second part with close reference to the first part, what does it reflect Cockeram's intentional practice revealing his interest in word formation? Concerning such questions, none of Cockeram's introductory materials to his dictionary give any suggestions, but when we examine refined terms which are uniquely listed in the second part, being not treated in the first part, as well as in Cawdrey's table and Bullokar's Expositor, it seems to be appropriate to judge that the situation evidently resulted from Cockeram's keen interest in word formation. I indicated in section 1 that out of the 238 reference terms of my analysis, there are no more than 19 which are uniquely listed in the second part. At the same time, it is also true that they clearly show Cockeram's interest in word formation. In the following, I will deal with this point. For instance, Cockeram provided each and such entries are quoted at number 21 in the second part would refine terms, namely indeplorable, graceful, and semblably, are not listed in the first part and seemingly do not have anything in common with one another. However, in the second part, we can also find the entries shown at number 22, whose counterparts are included in the first part as indicated. It will be clear here that Cockeram provided entries to list indeplorable, graceful, and semblably based on those to list deplorable, gracility, and semblable, respectively, revealing his interest in word formation. If I cite one more set of examples, we can point out the situation as indicated at number 23. They are judged to be evidently based on other three terms in the same second part, which are also treated in the first part. They are shown at number 24. From the examples which I cited so far, we may safely say that the second part bears the characteristics of a dictionary of derivative words reflecting Cockeram's interest in word formation. Section 5, Conclusion. It may now be said that in the compilation process of his second part, Cockeram made creative use of the first part of his dictionary as well as Cawdrey's table and Bullokar's Expositor. The second part, when seen from an overall viewpoint, has three aspects to be specially noted, which are hardly seen in the first part and the two dictionaries. They are its arrangement of entries, treatment of synonyms, and information on word formation, which I have analyzed so far in this presentation, and Cockeram's lexicographical techniques, which resulted in the aspects, can be regarded as having been significant in the first half of the 17th century. Concerning this point, the main points of my analysis are as shown at number 25. Regrettably, these aspects were obscured by other English dictionaries at Cockeram's time, whose headwords are usually difficult words, seeming to have been hardly known until today. However, it may safely be said now that the second part of Cockeram's dictionary is highly significant as a dictionary in the century, revealing the precursors of techniques which are indispensable for the development of the lexicography of English monolingual dictionaries after it. This is the cited references of my presentation. And the second page of the cited references. Thank you for joining me in this exploration. If you find the topic this time interesting, it is expounded in detail in my paper, as you see.